Hello, and welcome to our Leadership Series webinar on reopening schools with a focus on SEL and equity, co-hosted by Sanford Inspire and NCUST. My name is Amanda Rothengast, and I'm the Program Manager for Sanford Inspire, and we are honored to be co-presenting this series to support school leaders or aspiring leaders in such challenging times. Before we get started, I would like to let you know a bit more about this series. This presentation is the opinions and content of our guest speakers and panelists and may not necessarily be a direct representation of Sanford Inspire or Incust. This is the final webinar in our 5-part leadership series, and you will receive a link with access to the recording and decks of the entire series in the next week. So you can watch it at any time and share it with your colleagues as well. We do recommend today that you shut down all other browsers for best viewing. And if you have questions or are responding to a question, please use your chat box or go on your GoToWebinar panel. Also, you will see on your GoToWebinar panel under handouts, a webinar series handout highlighting the key points from our previous sessions, and you can download that today for your reference. Well, before we start, we'd like to launch a short poll to get to know more about you. So please respond directly on your screen and let us know what is your current position. And as soon as you have done that, go ahead and type in the question box, what type of institution do you work for and where? For example, an elementary school in Kansas. Okay, we'll give you a few more minutes to respond to the poll. All right, we'll go ahead and close the poll there. And you can see we have teachers, we have support personnel, we have school level administrators, district level administrators, and other participating today. Thank you so much. And now take a minute to respond in the question box. I can see you're coming from all over the country. Thank you so much for joining us today. From Nebraska, from California, from Texas, from Puerto Rico. Thank you so much. We're thrilled to have you, and from all levels of institutions. Great to have you here today. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Joe Johnson, the Executive Director of NCUST. Welcome, Dr. Johnson.
Hello and welcome. My name is Joe Johnson. I serve as the Executive Director of the National Center for Urban School Transformation, Incust. Incust identifies, awards, and studies schools that achieve outstanding learning results for all students. We are so pleased to welcome you to the 5th and final session of Reopening Schools with the focus on SEL and equity. Whether your schools open this fall or at some other point in the not too distant future, we hope you will have stronger, more complete plans for how you will ensure a socially, emotionally healthy reopening in a way that advances true equity and learning outcomes for all your students. In the first session, we emphasized why planning for reopening is so important. In the second, our panel of experts offered many specific ideas about how educators could plan strategies for listening to the social, emotional needs of students, families, and staff. In the third session, the panel emphasized the importance of ensuring that reopening plans responded to the social, emotional, and academic needs of everyone concerned. And in the fourth session, the panel stressed the critical importance of building the capacity of school personnel to respond to students' social emotional needs. Recordings and presentation slides for all previous sessions have been emailed to you. And in response to our invitation, many in our audience shared an aspect of their plan for reopening school in a way that would promote the social emotional well-being of students, families, and staff, and enhance educational equity. In today's session, we will share some of the plans we received, and our distinguished panel members will offer comments, insights, and suggestions. Before we proceed to highlight some of the plans that audience members shared, we want to hear from you about some of the most important concepts you took away from sessions 1 through 4. Ms. Rothengast, could you please lead this discussion?
Yes, and my question box is not appearing right now. So Dr. Johnson, I may have you read out some of the responses. I will ask the question. For the sessions in the series you have viewed so far, there was one live one and then 3 pre-recorded ones we've sent you. What's been the most important takeaway for you? Please type your response in your question box. And if Dr. Johnson, if you see any of the responses appear, if you could share some of it, that would be great.
Okay. Actually, I'm not seeing those appear.
All right. Amy, do you see a way to reset our question box to appear in either of our views? Continue to write your thoughts down and we will work on our technical side here.
Click on the question box and then click on the little box with the arrow pointing to the left.
Yes, the question box is not appearing for me in the panel right now. Amy, are you able to share out some of the responses?
Yeah, so building relationships with my students and being more empathetic, listening to students and parents, build relationships with students. Let's see, the importance to ensure academic success for the students. District leaders and admin need to foster plans with teachers and other staff to communicate about their SEL needs and communicate with students and families about their SEL needs. Making sure we include faculty and staff SEL in the discussion. It's important we care for ourselves and the adults in the building so we can care for students and their families. Focus on SEL before anything else.
Thank you so much. It was great to hear your key takeaways from this amazing series of presenters. Now back to you, Dr. Johnson.
Okay, thank you. We're fortunate to have an impressive panel of educational experts. Today's panel includes winners of the 2019 Sanford Teaching Award. These individuals were named the top inspirational teacher in their state and qualified for the honor of being named the nation's top inspirational teacher in 2019. Our outstanding teacher panelists include Linda Amici from Alcott Elementary in Westerville, Ohio, Sarah Freyer from Woodbridge International School in Washington, D.C., Leah Msjelky from Fargo South High School in Fargo, North Dakota, Claudine James from Malvern Middle School in Malvern, Arkansas, and Laura Thompson from William F. Cook Jr. Elementary in Hockessin, Delaware. Additionally, we're fortunate to have 3 outstanding award-winning principals. These principals lead schools that are winners of Incust America's Best Urban School Award. Even though their schools serve low-income communities with all the challenges we associate with urbanicity, every demographic group of students in their school, outperform statewide averages for all students. So I'm pleased to introduce Alexis Sorton, principal of Concourse Village Elementary in the Bronx, New York, Lauren Malhoit, principal of James DeAnda Elementary in Houston, Texas, and Suzanne Berry, principal of Winbrook Elementary School in West Palm Beach, Florida. Additionally, we are joined by my colleague, Dr. Jose Iniguez, Executive Coach at the National Center for Urban School Transformation. Panelists, thank you so much for joining us. Reviewing the submissions submitted by our audience, we noticed a few recurring themes. For example, Principal Boss in Carlsbad, California, and Principal Janet Huger Johnson in New York City are both including the parents and guardians of their students in their reopening plans. Principal Boss plans to hold Zoom workshops, post recordings and videos on their school website and social media venues. Office hours will be available for parents, guardians, and caregivers who need support, such as resources or technical troubleshooting. Principal Janet Huger Johnson also intends to partner with parents. She feels it's important to include them in the decision-making process because all stakeholders must be involved in redefining education in order to make a systemic shift. So I want to turn to our panelists and ask, what comments or suggestions do you have for schools looking to partner with parents as they reopen? So Ms. Freer, I'd like to start with you.
Thank you. These are all great suggestions. One thing that I would like to add to the toolbox during these uncertain times that a way the schools can help the parents is to encourage all teachers to create their own teacher website. I call it the one-stop shop. On their own teacher website, they will have all the information that's provided for the school on their child's teacher's website. On top of, the teacher will have their personal contact information. They can put the recordings of lessons that happen on Zoom so the kids can go back and replay it while they're doing their homework. They can have their syllabus on there. They can have their homework and a lot of other resources to help families during this uncertain time. So it's just one click away to a one-stop shop to help the parents during these uncertain times. Thank you.
Great idea. Thank you so much for sharing. Principal Sorton, what are your thoughts?
I agree with you, Ms. Freer. I think that's a great idea, and I would also like to add to keep it simple. Where possible, keep it very simple set, and by simple I mean very clear with your directions, your instructions. What do you want to accomplish for the week? What are the goals? Also helping parents set clear routines at home and timetables so that they know this is what my child should be completing and this is the time frame when he or she should be completing it. And where possible, try to create the most independence for children so that parents don't have to take on the teaching load. And at our school, we also have a team designed just to support families. So to think about families' needs, whether it's mental health needs, support with housing or food. So those are some of the things we're putting in place to make sure our families have what they need.
Excellent ideas. Thank you so much for sharing. Principal Berry, what about you? What are your ideas?
All right, first of all, I'd like to apologize. I'm not on camera right now. I'm speaking from the phone, but I'm, again, very happy to be here. So some ideas that have come from our district. I'm currently in Palm Beach County School District, and this is fresh information because I just got off a meeting with them this morning. And some things that I've heard from the district and we're going to continue doing through my school is I am a community school, free and reduced lunch rate of 94%. And we've been at A School 17 years in a row. So being a community school, we really have to reach out with the community so we can keep the parents involved. We have a local Boys and Girls Club that they've been operating their summer programs. So I've reached out to them to ensure, because they will be opened, and a lot of our parents will have their kids go there and complete online learning at the Boys and Girls Club, as well as Tiny Tykes, which is a daycare, but they're going to also be extending it for school-age children, you know, since we're going to virtual education. So reach out to those local daycares, and I will be partnering with them to make sure they have access to all teachers and be able to assist the student throughout the day. And also, I'm not really making homework extra. So throughout the day, we will have the support from our local daycare agencies and also our local community centers. We have a trailer park community center, and we are partnering with them as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that response. Thanks to all of our panelists. You know, it's always a good time to build partnerships with parents and guardians and to deliberately plan to build their capacity to contribute to their children's social, emotional, and academic growth. So thank you for your clear, specific ideas about some things that we all can think about. And I'd also like to thank Principal Boss and Principal Huger Johnson for contributing their plan ideas. Thank you. So a second theme from our audience submissions was to structure time for staff to build or rebuild connections and relationships with their students. Leanne, a special education teacher in Hawaii's Windward District, shared that an integral component of their school reopening is to reconnect with students. They intend to assess their students' social, emotional, behavioral, and academic needs while spending time talking and playing with students to rebuild connections on a more personal level. Sandra, a school counselor in Arizona, shared that her school is beginning the school year online and that they intend to hold morning meetings with their students. She states, students have not been with the staff or their friends since March. They need time to share what they've experienced and get to know each other, even virtually. So panelists, what comments or suggestions do you have for schools looking to reconnect with their students in person or build relationships virtually as they reopen this year? Ms. Amici, let's start with you. What ideas do you have?
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. At the top of my list of concerns for our students is the disconnection from trusted adults, caregivers of their hearts and their minds, and the absence of opportunities to really collaborate and fine-tune those interpersonal skills with one another. So our students are going to need, I agree with that statement, they're going to need time, space, coaching, support, and guidance to reestablish and to define those new social norms within digital spaces for many of us. Sorry, it's telling me that my webcam is slowing down. To me, the social emotional learning standards are really the most essential to address initially. So we have to first address those, I believe, in order to be able to get anything done in the rigor and the academics later on. So we need to, I think, build our own personal well-being. We need to work on that with the members of our staff or our faculty, and then also make sure that we create some time, space, and opportunity for our students to focus on well-being. I'm right now working with a team of really dedicated educators to create a program that would help to support teachers in doing this work, and then help empower teachers to design well-being work for their students. There's wellnesseducation.wordpress.com if you want to know more about that program. But I'm planning to get involved in that work personally. And then I'm also planning to be very intentional about creating space, providing tools, and building opportunity for my students to do that work right out of the gate. Helping parents also to have an understanding of the path that I plan to forge with creating these connections and well-being first will really help them to be able to support me in more of a partnership kind of way to do this work too. And now more than ever, those of us that are teaching digitally are teaching the entire family, not just the student. So this is a larger responsibility, and I believe a larger opportunity that we have to bring family members along to build a stronger support structure as we move forward. My plan is to send a short but really open-ended survey to families, asking for their opinions about what worked, what they would, some ideas that they would have to do things better, and what support areas that they need as a family, and what they see as their students' support needs, their child support needs. And then I plan to meet with each family via video conference to establish that relationship of trust and partnership. And then additionally, I plan to meet with small groups of students and individually with students to really just build that connection. I really feel like the relationship that we build with our students has the potential to change the trajectory of their lives in many ways. And when they're willing to synthesize and apply what we have for them and let us speak into their lives because they care about that relationship, we have an incredible power and opportunity there. So as incredibly difficult as this experience has been, my mother has continually modeled for me the importance of finding silver linings wherever you are. And so for me, the importance of gratitude and searching as if I were hunting for a great treasure for silver linings within these trying situations has really helped. And in this one, I do see many opportunities to connect with others far away, to increase perspective taking and to build empathy, time to intentionally focus on well-being, the gift of being able to focus on the most essential and relevant core work with students without the pressure of all of the high stakes, hopefully without the pressure of the high stakes testing. And then the opportunity for the one-on-one work to build relationships and to differentiate with each child individually are silver linings that I see.
Thank you so much, Ms. Amici. Ms. Thompson, what about you? What do you think?
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. I'd like to say that I really agree with Leanne's suggestions about building connections with students and how important that is. She mentioned spending time, and that will be key to returning to school. We have been out of school for a number of months, and most students will have had limited contact with other students as well as the staff. And because of this, we won't be able to jump right back into traditional learning without some recognition of what we've been through and what we're currently going through. Those conversations will look very different depending upon the age of the student and also the mode of communication, whether it's in person or if it's virtual. I really admire Leanne for recognizing the need for a concerted effort to connect with kids on a social emotional basis. And I like the idea that Sandra shared about morning meetings for students to help them begin their day. I have a suggestion for this practice though. I suggest that those morning meetings are also recorded, and that gives the students an opportunity to access these meetings asynchronously, so at a time that's more convenient for them. And the importance of this is so that they can have that opportunity if for some reason, a multitude of reasons, they weren't able to sign in at the time of the actual morning meeting, but they're still able to access the video so they can see their fellow students and still hear the messages and have that connection building with their teacher. And also, by recording these videos, it gives the parents an opportunity to view those videos at another time and therefore feel more of a connection with this virtual classroom. And I'm so glad to see these great ideas coming from districts, administrators, and teachers that are cognizant of the relationship that must be built and maintained between students and teachers, regardless of if we're in person for learning or if we're in virtual classroom environments. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ms. Thompson. Dr. NCUST, how about you? What are your thoughts, especially from the district level perspective?
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Hello, everyone. I have two suggestions. One, I encourage district leaders to provide pragmatic support, including creating a compendium of social emotional learning resources. Also, when planning professional development, assume that social emotional learning is new for most teachers, and in this way, we can support new practices without simply disseminating theory or knowledge. Also, professional development should include modeling, opportunities to explore ideas and simulations, opportunities to practice skills in the context that they will be implemented, as just noted by many of our presenters. Most of this will be online. And also, when we think about context, this also includes student demographics. As an example, African American students may experience emotional trauma related to police brutality in a manner that differs from other students. And then finally, with professional development, let's not forget that it has to be an iterative learning cycle. It can't be a one and done. My second suggestion is I encourage district leaders to refine and communicate the learning priorities. It's unrealistic to expect teachers to simultaneously implement social emotional learning practices, learn new technology and online pedagogy, implement this year's entire curriculum, accelerate learning and mitigate learning loss, and also tend to personal matters. It's overwhelming. With this in mind, I encourage district leaders to make clear that social emotional learning is a learning priority equal in importance to others. This will remove any doubt as to whether it's optional. And then lastly, also demonstrate structurally how SEL is going to be implemented. This will help allay teachers' concerns regarding unrealistic expectations or concerns about whether or not they're addressing the correct learning priorities. Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. NCUST. Thank you, panelists. Building opportunities into master school schedules for students to share about themselves and their feelings, and making deliberate plans to connect with students, whether in person or virtually, will be important pieces to consider as schools reopen. And all of the suggestions provided by both Leanne and Sandra, as well as our panelists, are so appreciated. So thank you so much. The last theme we'd like to discuss from our audience submissions is the idea of promoting and modeling self-care among school personnel. Lisa Peterson, a school counselor at Eisenhower Elementary in Colorado, told us everyone is experiencing trauma right now. We are not in the stages of post-trauma yet. Our cognitive brains are offline and we're in survival mode with heightened emotional feelings. We need to slow down and take care of ourselves and be role models for the students on how to do that. Students will not learn new core material while in trauma, but we can show and teach them SEL skills that will benefit them for life. Panelists, what comments or suggestions do you have for schools related to promoting teacher and staff SEL and self-care skills as they reopen? Ms. James, let's start with you.
Hello. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This summer, actually, I guess this COVID season has been somewhat of a mecca in that I've learned so much and I've gained so much knowledge and I've learned about the people who are really here for me. But it's also been a huge time of mourning. I recently have experienced the loss of a family loved one, and that trauma that I'm going through emotionally reminded me that as a teacher and as an educator, and first and foremost as a mom, that I don't always have the answers, and I'm not always supposed to be in control. So one of the things that I've had to stop and think about and just actually realize is that teachers, educators have to take care of themselves first, because we cannot be the best for our students unless we're the best in our own self. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, is trying to get myself in a place to where I can be the educator that I once knew that I was. And so with that, I think that we all need to take the time to reflect, just stop and think about where we are, where our world is at. And after we reflect, to redefine our goals, because the same goals that I had last year when school started aren't going to be the goals that I have this year. And after we reflect and we redefine, we need to reconnect. Find those safe spaces. We always talk about students having safe spaces, but adults and teachers need safe spaces as well. So find those safe spaces, whether it be a coworker, another teacher, or just anybody that supports that. And also we need to realize that it's not uncommon and there's nothing wrong with teachers reaching out and seeking help to deal with our emotional needs as well. We always center on the students, but sometimes we have to take the spotlight off the students and put the spotlight on ourselves so that we can be able to be the best that we can be for our students as well.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ms. James. Appreciate the fact that this is all personal and we have to be mindful of the impact on the individual staff members. Msjelky, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I apologize that I don't have a webcam at the moment, but I would just like to mention that Lisa Peterson in this quote definitely has the right idea in the fact that everyone is experiencing trauma. And I think right now we really focus on our students, but we forget about our teachers and staff. And teachers are great at taking care of others, but not so great about taking care of themselves at times. So, teaching really is a calling to serve others. And oftentimes we're unable to find the time to care for ourselves. And so for me personally, as a single mom of a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old, dealing with online learning for my 8-year-old and keeping my 3-year-old busy, in the summertime here, the stress of not being able to go places, or is it safe in the grocery store? Am engaging in these meetings with our state and our local districts about our COVID response. And honestly, it just keeps me up at night. I can't sleep. I've definitely gained that COVID 19 pounds. And I'm just really trying to keep it all together. And the one thing that I found that really helps me keep it together is to acknowledge the fact that this is not normal. We definitely need to acknowledge that. And society expects us teachers to really perform at this superhuman level. And that if we complain about something, that it is, that we don't like our jobs. And that's just not it. We really love our jobs, but we also need to love ourselves. And so one thing that I have done intentionally was to create a shutdown time, some alone time and meditation after my children have gone to bed. It's really hard to turn my brain off, but I really do shut that laptop and try to do some yoga or meditation. The second thing is, if you don't have the app Marco Polo, you definitely need to get it. Marco Polo is a video messaging app, so you don't have to be live with the person you're messaging. I have a friend and colleague that works in Utah, and it is amazing to be able to leave messages for her. She's also an English teacher, and it's really therapy to be able to talk to someone else who understands the teaching profession and that you can just share your feelings with. And you don't have to do it live. You can do it whenever you get the chance to get back to them. And that's been amazing for me to be able to connect with my peers on that level. And then the last thing that I really think is really important is gratitude. And I know it was said earlier, but just being able to, I've implemented thinking about 5 things when I wake up immediately that I'm grateful for and that I'm thankful for. And right before I go to bed, I can't turn my mind off. So I stop and I think of 5 more things. What happened today? And what am I thankful for? And to really think about that gratitude. And that helps get my brain in a more relaxed, positive place.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing those those ideas that are so important, clear, simple, wise. Principal Malhoit, how about you? What would you like to add?
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And I agree with the other two panelists and with the quote that we need to slow down and take care of ourselves to be role models for students. So how to do that on a principal or school administrator level, I've kind of broken it down into 3 pieces. The first one is gathering information. And we talk about data all the time, but with ever-changing district, local, state, federal guidelines, the district level plans are changing, and so are our school plans are constantly pivoting. And the uncertainty is not easy. In fact, I had one teacher on my campus who learned her school was going virtual before our district, her daughter's school was going virtual before our district had unveiled plans. And she wasn't sure how she was going to balance her job and her home life. And so the first step we need to do is really assess, where are we at? Where are you at yourself? And then where's your campus at? How are your teachers' feelings? Everyone has experienced something from COVID, and as Msjelky said, this is not normal. So let's have one-on-one conversations. You can do a survey, but then let's follow up with a personal interaction of a Zoom or a Teams meeting with our teachers to really dig at, where are they feeling? Is it anxiety? Is it worry? Is it overwhelming? Where are we at? And then let's not just check in once, let's make check-ins regular and consistent throughout the school year as plans and local guidelines change. Step 2, let's acknowledge and share out together our campus and staff feelings. During the beginning of the year professional development, whether it's virtual or in person, we can together acknowledge the uncertainties and concerns and recognize that we are aligned in our mission as educators to help our kids and our families, but to also support each other. And then after we have acknowledged what we need, each campus is going to have different needs based on their teachers and their teams. And so administrators, I would encourage you to be responsive and making your plans based on the information you gathered. District levels can create departmental support that can respond to different needs. For example, at Houston Independent School District, we've created a mental health crisis hotline with experts who can support those staff members who have really deep seated needs that I might not have the expertise around. Next, I think time is critical. I remember as a teacher, there just never is enough time. And now specifically with COVID and virtual learning and constantly pivoting, we really want time for our teachers and our staff to have time to be empathetic, to have time to build relationships with kids. There was one parent in the news recently who said that virtual learning is half the work, so teachers should get half the pay. And I strongly differ with that remark. Let's be flexible with our teachers. Let's give them, in our master schedules, time to take breaks. My teachers have almost tripled the amount of breaks they're going to be receiving next year because we want them to be responsive to the kids, but we also need them to take time for themselves and allow them time. And then we also should be really intentional about rebuilding our communities. Schools have been and should always be a place of joy for students, teachers, and families. I know I'm leveraging my awesome counselor, Ms. Grodner, and we're working together to continue to make our culture as joyful and collaborative as possible. So whether it's having a group me challenge where we write what we're thankful for every Thursday, or we have a break room party via Zoom, and we have virtual trivia, virtual bingo, and it's a challenge my campus has every year called the Golden Goblet Challenge. It's a series of activities each day. We're going to continue that challenge throughout the PD and throughout the year to continue to support each other and to make opportunities of collegiality and celebration and joy. And those are my closing thoughts, but I also just want to really quickly thank all of the educators, teachers, administrators, district leaders who are pushing through these uncertain times. I think we've never really been met with such stress and such uncertainty. And I want to thank NCUST and Sanford Inspire as well for continuing to support all of us during this time. So thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Principal Malhoit. All the panelists, thank you for your wonderful ideas. It's such an important time to recognize that we're all experiencing trauma. The social and emotional well-being of teachers and staff are paramount, especially as they are often the main support system for our students. The actions and reactions they model in front of their students can shape how those students respond to challenges in the future. So let's now open the discussion to our live audience. Ms. Rothengast, what questions can our panelists answer for our audience?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Johnson. And if anyone has an additional question, feel free to type it in your question box. I do have a few questions that have already come up. This one I think would be excellent for Claudine James to answer, because I know you are wonderful at writing grants in opportunities that come up. This question is from a teacher. Nathan asked, what do you do if you lack the resources to put together the ideas that have been suggested by the panelists? Do you have any ideas that you can share?
Yes, and thank you, Amanda, for this opportunity. Finding money in crazy places is sort of my niche. One of the things that any of you teachers can do at this time, and I'm actually was the winner this year, it's called We Teachers, and they sponsor ways for you to address the social and emotional needs of your students, and it's called WE Teachers, and it's found on Walgreens website, and I won a $500 gift card that I can use this year to start up in my classroom. Also, you would be really, really surprised to know that lots of businesses are very willing to help you. Most businesses have what's called a community fund, especially businesses such as banks and other financial institutions. They have money set aside to help you with that. And you'd be surprised at times that I've just actually found the marketing director and written them a letter, and I get a call back saying we don't have much, but you can come and pick up a check for a couple $100. So look to your local businesses, especially the ones financial institutions, the ones that have money, and then again you can apply for the We Teacher opportunity grant. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Claudine James. Sarah Freyer, there was a question about, and I know you're a primary teacher, what resources do you recommend for primary students, particularly for supporting kinder students was the question, but from your experience with kinder and first grade, what would you recommend?
Yes, I love Kinder. Kinder is my favorite. So if you're doing online, one thing that I like are called Boom cards. It's called Boom Learning, and also Nearpod. And with Nearpod, you can make the lessons interactive for them, and it tracks the data of how they did on the lessons. It's kind of like a PowerPoint, but it's interactive PowerPoint. And on Boom cards, I like, because I use those during guided reading. So I still have guided reading going online. So just think of them, if they're in a center, I gave them their individual Boom card lesson. So if it's a sort, they can sort on there, just like if they had the letters and the words in front of them in class, sorting in the phonics center. So those are some really good resources that I found that help. And thank you for that question. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. And a question for our administrators. Principal Sorden, there was a district administrator asked, what will be done differently now to build social relationship skills that hasn't been done since March, and the same virtual platform will be in place?
In connection to students?
Yes, I believe that is the focus on what needs to be done for students, since there has been this long break and now we're all on a virtual, most of us will all be on a virtual platform.
So one of the things that we did, we made sure that we were still celebrating our students online with morning meetings. We also used Class Dojo for virtual dollars and to reward students. We had a lot of virtual celebrations. We had competitions for the best readers, the best mathematicians, but also our guidance counselor made sure that she stuck to her schedule, and she was having live sessions with students. And when that wasn't available, she did daily phone check-ins just to see how students were doing. And we were also texting them as well, since we didn't have access to them in person.
Thank you so much. There was a question for Principal Malhoit. Can you elaborate on the time, what the time looks like for your staff throughout the day? What will it be on the master schedule? So if you're comfortable to share a way they can reach out to you, or if you want to share some highlights of what the schedule will look like.
Sure. So I have had a lot of wonderful thought partners in HISD, fellow principals and fellow leaders. And what we really did is looked at what instructional day do we have? What are the actual hours that are allocated? But then also what are the needs that our teachers are going to have. So for example, HISD has an asynchronous model that we're adopting, which allows kids to work up until 11:59 p.m. to be counted present for the day. And when that happens, the teachers are going to need time to check the systems that they're working on to make sure that they're working on, and then to mark them present, not at 11:59 p.m. But time for that, then allowing additional planning time in the school I'm at, teachers are at minimum allocated 45 minutes of planning a day. But then I had to think about, what am I asking of my teachers? If I'm asking them to use new platforms and to use engagement strategies like Pear Deck or Quizlet, there's going to be a learning curve that my teachers are going to have to spend to invest time to hone their craft to be more excellent. And so that's really where my framework went, is how much time do we need? And I'm happy to share resources or to be a thought partner. My email is pretty tricky, but you can look me up, Houston Independent School District. I'm at Deanda Elementary. You'll find my information. So Lauren Malhoit, principal at Deanda Elementary in Houston School District. And thank you for that question, and good luck building your master schedule. I've made several drafts, and I'm sure most people are as well.
Thank you so much. So if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to the panelists. They have shared in the slide decks their contact information. So it would be great for you to reach out with additional questions. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ms. Swathengass. I'm going to ask you to keep going by sharing some of the resources that are available from Sanford.
Yes, I just wanted to all let you know, many of you are Harmony and Inspire users, but I just wanted to share again some of the references to our materials, that we are here to support educators, especially in these challenging times. So if you want to go on to the next slide. You may be aware that Sanford Harmony is a CASEL Select program. CASEL, the Collaborative and Academic Social and Emotional Learning, is a clearinghouse for all things SEL. And to become a CASEL Select program, we must have effectively supporting the development of each of the 5 competencies seen in this graphic. And so Sanford Harmony provides lessons for the classroom or group settings, daily practices to be implemented school-wide, and support for homes and community groups. So whether your program takes place in the classroom, somewhere else in the school, online, Harmony's daily practices, lessons, and activities and home school connection resources can contribute to your students' success in school and in life. And it's absolutely free, these resources. Next slide, please. Our everyday practices provide each student with a safe place to communicate without fear of teasing or bullying. Through Meetup and Buddy Up, we reinforce positive communication skills that include not only speaking and listening intently, but also respectful as others are speaking. Harmony lessons provide opportunities for students to express their thoughts about topics not always addressed in the academic day. These activities and conversations build a foundation of trust upon which healthier relationships can be built. Next slide. So we also have additional resources now that we've pivoted in. Many of you in the distant learning environment may want to access either the Harmony at Home, and the website is there. And these, again, are all free resources to support educators, teachers, and parents in home environments using our resources. Next. We also have created a virtual instruction free Padlet for educators. So we encourage you to check out this Padlet and download all these resources for tips for creating a positive experience when you're using Sanford Harmony in a virtual environment. Next. Also wanted to encourage you to check out Inspire at Home. Sanford Inspires our professional development for educators. Again, it's all free. And we recently developed the Inspire at Home toolkit for teachers and parents seeking resources with many students learning at home. And just quickly, just what you'll see on the toolkit, you'll see access to our modules that are 30 to 60 minutes and access to our on-demand webinars that you can view at any time, again, to support self-care and reflection. And there is our own Leah Msjelky, who did a recent webinar. And again, many resources to help learning at home when focused on building relationships with students. So please, please do check out our resources, again, all free, and we're here to support you. We also have additional resources from our partners that are listed on our page that have amazing resources as well. And finally, I just wanted to mention our regular webinar series that we will continue at the end of August. And again, they're offered each month, presented by thought leaders and inspirational educators addressing topics that support SEL and equity. And they're all free. And if you're not able to join live, as soon as you register, you will receive a recording afterwards. So we encourage you to share these webinars with your school communities. Dr. Johnson, now back to you.
Thanks. So the National Center for Urban School Transformation identifies these amazing schools that are achieving outstanding academic results for every racial, ethnic, income group served. And most people appropriately assume that in those schools that we would find rigorous curricula. That's correct. And they would appropriately assume that we find engaging instruction, and that's correct. But what they sometimes don't realize is that fundamental to the success of these schools is a wonderful culture where all students feel valued and capable, and they embody those SEL principles. And so one of the things that we do at Incust is we help schools determine, do they have that kind of culture, that kind of instruction, that kind of curriculum that we find in very, very high-performing schools that are getting great results for all children. And that's our educational equity and excellence audits. Also, next slide. We are launching 2 new advanced certificate programs. So if you see yourself as an equity-driven educational leader, if you refuse to be satisfied with anything less than excellence for all, we encourage you to join us for a virtual open house to learn more about our Leadership for Excellence and Equity Advanced Certificate programs. And here on the slide deck, you can see the dates and times for that virtual open house. More information is available on our website at Incust.com. And then finally, next slide, there's information about a new webinar series that is based on the teaching practices we find in very high-performing urban schools. But this webinar series is all about how you might adapt those teaching practices for online learning. And again, you can find more information at Incust.com. So before we go, let's hear from our esteemed panelists one more time. In 30 seconds, we want you to please share with us just one component of your reopening plan. And we're going to ask that the panelists go in alphabetical order by first name. And so Principal Alexis Orton, let's start with you.
Thank you again for this awesome opportunity, Dr. Johnson. And one of the things that's on my mind in 30 seconds or less is how do we, as a school community, make sure that we're providing high quality instruction, social emotional learning opportunities, thinking about that whole child in looking at in-person learning, remote learning, and the flipped classroom. So maximizing those 3 approaches to make sure that our students are receiving an amazing learning experience this upcoming school year.
Great. Ms. James.
Yes. Thank you again for this amazing opportunity for this whole webinar series. And I'm going to suggest that one of the first things I learned how to do when I became a teacher is the simple words of modify and adjust. As an OCD person, this year is going to not be good for me. But I know as educators, we have proven time and time again that we are best at modifying and adjusting. So there's no plan, because plans are going to continually change. But as those plans continually change, we need to be prepared to modify and adjust. Thank you.
Wise words. Dr. Iniguez.
Thank you. To help principals fund the wonderful ideas presented today, and there are a lot, I encourage district leaders to outline newly available funds and the increased flexibility of existing funds. Principals, having been one myself, simply do not have time to research the latest developments in this area, and this is no exception. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thompson.
Hello there. My school has not made the plans yet. However, regardless of if we have an in-person or a virtual start this year, I really want to focus on the connection with parents and give that an even greater emphasis than I've given in the past. I mean, I've sent postcards, I've made phone calls before, but I want to provide Zoom meetings for my parents as well to help them be able to get to know me, and make videos too, so that those resources are available to parents asynchronously and through a platform that's easy, something that you can view on your phone, like through YouTube or maybe even through Flipgrid. That those are two areas that I could share some videos that could be viewed at times that are convenient to the parents, that help them understand what we're going to be doing in the classroom, how I'm connecting with the students, and then how I will be helping to support their connection to the school as well. And then my plan is to do something similar with the students to help them connect as well. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Principal Mailhoit.
Thank you. So I think the biggest piece to take away is we need to be we need to be prepared not only for the SEL needs and supports of our kids and our teachers and our staff, but also be prepared for those instructional gaps, instructional regression face when our students come to the classroom. So let's continue to manage high expectations of excellent instruction, but be creative with our virtual platforms. And that can be accessed through purposeful and responsive planning. PD should have those best practices and what they look like virtual, building a master schedule that supports kid SEL, teacher SEL supports. And then also one key piece we're using is leveraging all of our support staff. If our clerks or our administrative assistants can be supporting instructionally, or they can support with tech, we're going to do it because we're a team effort. So thank you again for this opportunity, and good luck to all of our educators as we continue to serve our students with high quality.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Ms. Msjelky.
Hi, thank you. So one level of our plan is a hybrid for elementary and at the same time an online for middle school and high school. And this is actually very unique because when you have a hybrid for elementary and you split the classroom into half, you have your A and B days. And those students that are B day, they stay home and they do digital learning. But what about those students that can't stay home and those parents that need to work? So our district has come up with an idea where those students who cannot stay home on that B day, they are going to be bused or brought to school essentially, but they're going to go to the high school or middle school because all those students will be distance learning, and they'll be in a guided learning center where paras will be there to help guide them, and the little units of students, the little groups will stay the same for contact tracing, of course. And so that para will be connected to the classroom that those specific students are in, and they'll be able to provide them help with their digital learning on their off days when they're not in the classroom. So I thought that was a very unique approach to really help those working families and give them that option, and to give those students help. Even if you have a working family but they do need some help, they can come to that guided learning center. So I thought that was a great approach that our district is taking on that level.
Thank you, Ms. Msjelky. Ms. Amici.
Wow, these are amazing ideas. I can't write fast enough. Oh my goodness. An idea that I have is really to press in with the families and to spend 2 minutes a day for the entire week, just focusing on one student at a time in that 2 minutes and making sure that the families are comfortable and safe. What I discovered in the spring was a student, through a student that was kind of disengaged a little bit and was a very engaged student, is that that family really needed help. So I reached out to the parents and said, hey, what's going on with your son? And the mom was very, she was having really struggling with the whole, my son is kind of depressed and I don't know what to do. So then I was able to then go in and target that and make sure that I helped him to get back, and he got back and it was fine. But really pressing into families and pressing into students very, very closely.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Ms. Freyer.
Hi, thank you again for this opportunity. One thing that I'm going to do with the start of the school year, like I always do, which is really important, is really building those positive relationships. And this year, what I'm going to do is just make office hours where my students can come in and just talk to me about anything they want before the school year. I'm making office hours before they have to get online, and also during class time. I'm just making myself way more available to get that foundation of building that positive relationship. And also, I know the students are going to miss their friends and making that friend bond with their colleagues, their peers in their classroom. So I'm having time set up in my lessons where they can have Zoom time for a break and go in chat rooms with friends, and they can share each other their toys, through the camera, and just kind of build that relationship and that bond with all of us, because that's really important. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great school year.
Thank you. And finally, Principal Barry.
Okay, for our district, what we're doing for our reopening plan is we are actually reopening in phases. Being that West Palm Beach, we are currently one of the hot spots, so we are still in phase 1, and not much going out and about for people in general in the county, which is kind of sad. However, for phase 1, we're all going to be online, except for the office staff. The office staff has been in the building all summer. We are going to distribute our devices. The district is currently having a survey for our parents and our staff, so we can find out the needs of our parents in regards to internet concerns. They're reaching out to local internet providers. They're reaching out to FPL, because we do have some family members that, they're choosing, they have too many bills and they have to choose, what are we going to pay? So we're doing our survey so we can find out specifically what our parents' needs are. We will be getting the results back next week. We're able to go in, each principal is able to go in and see which family members did not complete the survey. And then I'm having my staff, we're going to divvy it up by grade levels, and we're going to call each parent and read the survey to them, so we're able to make sure we have as many responses as possible. Then once we do move into phase 2, hopefully at some point, that is when we will reopen our school in a staggered way, which we will have our pre-K and kindergarten students come back at the elementary level. Phase 3, we will then incorporate 2nd, 3rd, and phase 4 will be 4th and 5th. So we are looking forward to our reopening plans, and we're gonna make this work.
Thank you so much, Principal Barry, and thanks to all the panelists. You are amazing. What an amazing group. Thank you for your leadership and all that you're doing for your students and for all of us across the country. Ms. Rothengast, I'm going to turn it over to you to close us out.
Yes, thank you so much for all participating. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you for our audience members. We will send you out copies of the recording decks, handouts, participation certificates. We do appreciate if you could take a few minutes to complete our poll to give us our survey that will pop up in just a few minutes when you close here. That gives us important feedback on the series, how it worked for you, on what we can do for future series. So thank you all for participating. We really appreciate your time, and we hope you share our resources with your communities as well. And best of luck with your reopenings.